Financial Planner, follow us on YouTube.
Talk about cannabis today. This isn't like it was years ago. The perception, the stigma, something that's just horribly legal and done in the undergrounds and the basements of different houses. But here is a new age, a new time period, a revolution. I guess we can call it prohibition unleashing in 2017, 2018 of cannabis. And I think this is going to be huge. I think a lot of money is going to be made in this space. And to talk to me about this today is Eric Gomez, CEO and founding partner of Canopy San Diego. And Canopy San Diego is a mentorship-driven seed stage investment program for startups in the legal cannabis ancillary industry. CanopySD.com is the website. Eric's got a lot of background in this, and we're going to be able to pick his brain here. Eric, thanks for joining me here at Crush the Street.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Well, let's start off with this. Canada goes legal in 2018 with recreational cannabis. Mid-2018, it's expected to go legal. Let's start off with just general thoughts on that, and then I want to pick your brain a little bit in regards to the implications.
Sure. Well, that's a pretty broad subject. I guess I'll start with, in general, it's about time, right? We've had medical, legal cannabis sales here since '96. Really, the regulations have been so undefined, and the enforcement of those regulations has been so up and down that we really haven't had a consistent market except for really the last few years. So we're all very, very happy to see some regulations. We've struggled a little bit with getting the old regulations tied into the new ones, but I've actually been pleasantly surprised by how the local municipalities and jurisdictions have started to weigh in and say, look, we need this to work. We need it to work right away. So we're seeing, while we still see a lot of opponents, I think the proponents are now becoming so obvious and so vocal that it's really affected in a very positive manner. So as an investor, this is incredibly promising, and I really do think that the rec sale numbers that we're going to see in California are really going to blow the socks off of a lot of people. We've seen, for example, in Nevada, the numbers came out that in the first month of their rec legal sales, they did more than Colorado and Washington combined in their first month. So, if Nevada is any indication, the California numbers should basically, dwarf every single other state's numbers. So that's very exciting, primarily for me because I want to see banking get behind this. I want to see some more movement on the federal level. And I think with California sales numbers and then investors in California pushing this industry forward, I think that's really going to start to happen. So 2018 is going to be a very, very important year for us.
Eric, this isn't just some stoner millennial trend. There are real doctors and scientists, and some of the smartest minds are behind this. And I just want to ask you, is the perception changing in regards to cannabis?
Absolutely, 100%. And I would say that started years ago. I think Colorado legalizing was a huge, huge event for us in terms of the perception. I think after that happened, you really had a lot of people jumping on to the promotion of the medical benefits, and that clearly has turned, as the polls say, 90% of the population approves of medical cannabis, and about 60 approves of rec. So, the perception has changed. I don't think there's any really discussion about that. I think you mentioned doctors and scientists in the beginning. I would say that in the U.S., there are not a lot of doctors and scientists behind this. And the reason I say that is because they're somewhat forbidden to engage because of federal legalization. Now, I would say that there are a lot more doctors and scientists internationally engaged. Take Canada, take Israel, take even the Latin American countries, which obviously are going to be forced to be in the medical space for quite a while. I would say they're way ahead of us on that aspect. We're super excited to see GW Pharmaceuticals plant their flag here in Carlsbad, California, which is just a few miles north of where we are. And that, I think, will go very, very far in getting the first FDA-approved real cannabis-based drug, not synthetic cannabis, cannabinoid, based drug on the market, and have that headquarters be here in San Diego.
You know what? That was actually one of the things that I wanted to touch on. And in regards to Canada going legal in 2018, what will this do for scientific research being able to thoroughly study the benefits of cannabis on a medical basis and on an official basis? And you touched on that there, but I'd like to explore it a little more if we can here. I mean, cannabis is not going to be the outcasted family member that we don't talk about. It's going to be something that we can put in the forefront of our research and really explore a lot of the health benefits that people are suggesting it helps with, but I put a real endorsement on that. So any more you can add to that?
100% agree with you. This is, for me, the last shoe to drop, if you will. I think as soon as we are able to do unrestricted research on the medical benefits of cannabis, this entire industry is going to grow much, much larger than anybody has predicted. And the predictions are already pretty big. We just don't know what we don't know, right? So we've got epilepsy, we've got pain, we've got some anxiety and some, PTSD sort of already treated, and there's plenty of studies out there to prove it. But there are a lot of other studies that I think will shock us about how effective cannabis is in treating many, many different diseases, and also in general wellness, which people can just only anecdotally sort of speak to today. So once we get proof of that, I completely see the pharmaceutical world turning on its head. Obviously, the opioid crisis is the first thing we're going to tackle, and we've already seen opioid deaths. And also costs go down about 25% in states where cannabis is medically legal. So that's just the first one to go. So that is the most exciting piece for me. We know that culturally we've accepted it. We know that there'll be big brands out there selling a lot of products and making a lot of money. But the medical side to me is going to be truly groundbreaking, and I think we're going to sort of note this in history as when we went from an illegal drug to something that provided massive relief for millions of people.
So I want to touch on both sides of the argument, and if you would just give us an idea of why are people concerned about it being legalized, and is there legitimacy along whatever portion of the spectrum for people to be concerned with cannabis being legal on a recreational level?
Absolutely, and there should be concern, right? Anytime somebody uses something to escape, there's certainly a line that people cross. And while there are no, at least to my knowledge, physical, threats, you technically cannot OD, I don't think, on THC, right? You can get pretty wacky, but I don't think you can actually die from it. So, there is obviously a certain safety already built in, but obviously you've got to look at productivity. You've got to look at how people use it in the workforce. When you mix a medicine and a escape mechanism, obviously you've got some gray areas in there. So this is something that is going to have to be highly regulated. And if you look at Canada, for example, they're being very, very strict about not marketing to children, not allowing sales in certain places, not allowing advertising and distribution to be completely unregulated. And that's their attempt at controlling what is a medical market and what is a adult rec market. And it's going to be a struggle, but I do agree that should be paid attention to very closely. Latin America, for example, obviously because of their culture being largely Catholic, they are probably not going to regulate rec use for years, if not decades. They are certainly taking a very, very specific medical approach to this. And I think if you specifically permit concentrates and delivery mechanisms that are medical. In other words, not smoking, vaping, things that are sort of undosed delivery devices. I think that's one way to do it, and I think some of those countries will do it a little more carefully than probably we will.
Sure, and you brought up the regulatory environment, and that was one of the things that I wanted to get into. From your perspective, this is one, what do you expect the regulatory environment to be like for companies who want to enter the space and for investors? Is it going to be a high risk, high reward because the companies are going to be dealing with so much regulations and controls that it's actually going to be very difficult to be profitable and to kind of break through those hurdles? And just because of that, it's going to be very capital intensive and, acquiring licenses. So just any thoughts on this?
There are a lot of pros and cons both ways. So first of all, I think the regulations are going to be changing continually for quite some time. Even in Colorado, which, they've had a 3-year kind of head start on us, we're still seeing certain jurisdictions, back off of allowing certain things, whether it's cultivation or retail. We're still seeing the issues of smoking on premise go up and down, as far as allowing people to smoke in clubs, for example. And Nevada's going through the same thing. So I think there'll still be a lot of details that'll take years and years to really play out. But from an investor standpoint and from a consumer standpoint, we welcome regulation. It keeps our participants and our partners in line. It keeps them liable, and hopefully we start shedding away the bad operators in this industry, which will be here for a long time. It's predicted about 80% of the current market is still illicit. So we've got a long way to go before this becomes a real industry. But as a consumer, you should be excited about it, because now you're actually going to be consuming products that do not contain pesticides, that contain what they say they contain. And so that's exciting for the consumer. And obviously the biggest problem with regulation is making sure the banks are comfortable with it. So if we can get banks behind this industry, then everybody will come in. Big venture capital, big institutional capital, large corporations will start developing their own products and research. All the universities will get into it as well. So, banking is really one of the key components in this entire thing. And if regulations can be settled around banking, then that will be an absolute game changer.
Okay, Eric. Well, you've made some significant claims here, and just really not that you made any significant specific claims that we're hanging you on or pinning you on, but it's just that this is big. This is revolutionary. This is one of the fastest growing industries in the world right now. Maybe it is the fastest growing industry in the world right now. And you're in front of it. You're in it. And that's really exciting to be in that rising tide environment. So if people want to learn more about what you do and what you're offering, please let them know about CanopySD.com. Well,
first of all, I will tell you that the first thing in this industry, and I put this in a couple of presentations that I give to entrepreneurs, is that you do have to be, humble. Nobody in this industry knows everything. It's moving too fast. It is comprised of so many different aspects, from accounting to legal, regulatory, political, social justice, economic. It's there are so many aspects to this industry, which is why it's so fascinating that nobody knows everything, right? We're all just opining on what's going to happen, and certainly I'm certainly one of those people who understands that I only know a tiny little bit about what's going to happen. As far as Canopy San Diego, we are a business accelerator. So our idea was to create some sort of infrastructure here in San Diego that would support the entrepreneurial community, and allow entrepreneurs to come into the cannabis industry, and also allow investors to feel safe, to invest in something that they understand, right? Technology, ancillary businesses, SaaS companies that they've bought and sold before and invested in before. not get into the licensed operations, which is just fraught with uncertainty and lack of education. So we went strictly towards the ancillary, particularly towards tech. We created an accelerator so we'd have a diversified portfolio for our investors, and so we'd have a collaborative working environment for entrepreneurs and not just sort of leave them hanging out there to kind of venture out in the space on their own. We ran it for a year. As far as the accelerator goes, that went extremely well. We had 16 companies in the fund today, so now we're actually working on getting those guys launched and out into the real world and raising their seed round and producing some revenue. So that's where Canopy San Diego is today. Right now, we're taking a break from bringing in new cohorts, new companies. I think 2018 is going to tell us a lot about this industry, and we want to wait a little bit, see what happens out there, see what happens to the investor appetite, see what happens on a federal level, and also see what happens with some of the technology companies coming into this space. And that'll tell us whether or not we'll be able to continue with the same model or not.
Okay. All right. Eric Gomez, CEO and founding partner of Canopy San Diego. Eric, thanks for coming on the show with me today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kenneth. I really appreciate it.